I was called cruel because I refused to take on my unemployed sister's debt. They called me a heartless woman, shamed me, even counted the bread on my plate. But they didn't know that when a quiet woman starts calculating, she doesn't scream, she changes everything and takes her revenge. And it's a lesson they will never forget for the rest of their lives. When my sister said that sentence while sitting at the kitchen table, "Just this once, please," I already knew I was going to be the villain today. Her hands were shaking, the coffee in front of her had gone cold, and the ticking of the clock on the wall was driving nails straight into my chest. I looked at her face, then at the papers scattered across the table, credit card bills, the remaining rent from the previous apartment, a receipt for repairs on an old car. Everything was lined up, ready to be put in my name. "I can't," I said. My voice was soft, but the decision was hard. Silence fell over the room. Then it didn't stay silent. My mother pushed her chair back, as if I had insulted her. Tears came into my sister's eyes, but anger got there first. "Then what are you?" she said. "A stone? You have a job, health insurance, an apartment. What difference does it make to you?" That was the moment where stories usually turn into screaming. But I didn't scream. I only said, "It makes a difference." They didn't know that the year before, I had lost my job and survived for 6 months on grocery coupons. They didn't know that when my knee gave out, I quit physical therapy because I couldn't afford the copay. I never told them any of that, because in my family, weakness was treated like an excuse. And an excuse, to them, was just another installment of debt. The next day, my name was dragged through the family group chat. Heartless. Selfish. Her blood has gone cold. Each word felt like a bill I hadn't paid, even though I was still being punished. At Sunday lunch, people counted what was on my plate. "She barely eats. What expenses could she even have?" someone joked. I tried to smile. Inside, nothing broke. It locked into place. I stayed quiet, but I started calculating. I logged into my accounts. I pulled my credit score history. I studied 10 years of patterns, every time I had helped, how temporary assistance had turned into permanent obligation. How just this once became a lifestyle. I looked at my sister's employment record, the late fees, the repossessions. It wasn't hatred. It was math. I scheduled a meeting at the bank. A plain branch, fluorescent lights, cheap carpet. I opened a separate account, set up automatic savings, built an emergency fund. I put filters on every expense that could leave my name attached to someone else's choices. Then I did the thing they never understood. I turned no into a system. My sister called again. "Just sign. I'll pay it myself." "I won't sign," I said. "But I'll build you a 3-month bridge." I laid out the terms clearly, a budget, the job center, weekly check-ins. No cash. Everything paid directly. She screamed. I stayed calm. That's when the twist came, not cinematic, just real life. Mrs. Harper, who lived below my apartment and always smiled in the elevator, saw the financial notices I was sorting. "You know finance, right?" she asked. Her community center was starting a small program, helping people understand bills, fix credit, stop drowning. I said yes. The pay was modest. The dignity wasn't. There, I saw versions of my sister's story again and again. The difference was that their families had given them tools instead of checkbooks. I learned something important. Revenge isn't always watching someone fall. Sometimes it's making sure the ground under your own feet is solid. Months later, my sister's voice sounded different on the phone. "I got a job," she said. Less pride than surprise. Then one day my mother messaged, "We need to talk." At lunch this time, no one counted my food. The silence was different, not empty, but thinking. I told them why I had said no. I didn't recite numbers. I told stories. I explained the difference between help and enablement. I told them I hadn't hated them, I had chosen to love my future. There was no applause at the end. Just a small American miracle. My sister paid her phone bill herself with her first paycheck. My mother said, "Maybe we misunderstood you." And I watched another automatic transfer slip into my emergency fund. Quiet, steady. They had called me cruel. Now they knew I calculate. And when I calculate, I don't take revenge by shouting. I take it by changing everything.